Why do some grassroots initiatives succeed in making a significant impact on student outcomes while others struggle to find their footing? What can we learn from these endeavors to promote a more inclusive and effective educational ecosystem? Our next session, Driving Change from the Ground Up, Lessons from Grassroots Initiatives for Improved Student Outcomes, promises to be a deep dive into the power of community-led change in education. Get ready to be inspired by stories of resilience, innovation, and community empowerment. Can we have our moderator, Dr. Donna Valise, CEO of Inspiring Leaders LLC, on the stage, and our panelists? I'm going to stand. I'll stand. I'm pretty short, though. My goodness. All right. Well, welcome. It's been probably a long day. If you need to stretch, go for it. Go ahead and stretch. But I want to start our session really grounding us in what grassroots is, right? So, what I want you to think about right now, before we even get started, because this is where we're really going with all of this. Who here can name at least one person, who didn't graduate high school, fell through the cracks in the system? Maybe they got through with by the skin of their teeth, like my son. How many can think of at least somebody? It's pretty almost unanimous. Some people are pointing at themselves, right? Yep. So I appreciate that, because I'll tell you, I was a mom. I'm an educator, and I speak and breathe education every day, and I was petrified from the time my son was in 8th grade that I would have a high school dropout on my hand, because he was so disengaged with school. And it shouldn't be like that. There should be no reason that we cannot be providing our students with an equitable access to a powerful and engaging education. So that's where we're coming from with this, and I just want to also have you think a little bit about what grassroots movements really, what this really means. So when we sat this morning over breakfast, this panel, we're going to solve the world's problems, just so y'all know. It was a really fantastic group. We were having fantastic conversation, but we were thinking about things in history, and number one always comes the civil rights movement, and we were listing and naming other things that are grassroots. And it really comes down to the people that are the leaders and at the top, whether it's the president, whether you're a superintendent, whether it's the State Department of Education, all the people in the top are very disconnected and out of touch with the people who are on the ground level. And that's where grassroots really starts, right? When we're not meeting the people's needs who we're supposed to be serving. So we just wanted to start with that. And I'm going to begin just a little bit. I'll introduce myself. I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves. Incredible, diverse backgrounds here. Let me tell you, you are in for a great panel. So I'm Dr. Donna Valise. I'm a director of learning and continuous improvement, AKA assistant superintendent without the fancy title or the fancy pay, in a small school district in Greene, New York. And I also have my own business called Inspiring Leaders, and I coach leaders out on the Lakota reservation. And right now, I am on a mission with my business and my partnership with my publisher, who is a special ed director, to break down the silos of innovation. We have innovation happening, and the problems of our educational system have really been solved, but they're happening in a silo here, in a little place over there, in a classroom over there. So I want to break those walls down, and I want to create a collective so that we can all learn and grow together through masterminding together, through publishing our stories together, so that we can help each other create change all across the entire educational system. So if you're interested in that, you're going to want to stop by. If you haven't talked to me or Angelica Benavides yet, you're going to want to stop by our booth the in the main room. So with that, grassroots movements. I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, everyone. I'm Eva Medalek. I am a certified high performance coach and also a certified diversity, equity, and inclusions communicator. And I am on a mission to empower educators to support their student success across diverse populations. I believe that creating inclusive environments has to start as an individual mission, if you will, within your communities, your jobs, your communities, your classrooms. Because if we rely on government and the loss of funding and all the initiatives, we're not going to get anywhere. And so it really needs to be within your personal leadership. That's why I've been able to combine high performance leadership with creating inclusive environments. So thank you. I'm looking forward to this panel. That last one was a tough act to follow, though.
My name is Carrie Ike Reiners, and I've been a high school teacher for over 20 years in Los Angeles. During the pandemic, my husband and I decided we'd bought some land up in near Kings Canyon, if you're familiar with any of the national parks in California, and just outside of that national park in Sequoia National Forest. And I decided that I wanted to bring more people there and share this natural space with more people and so I put in an orchard and started Be Well Gardens, and it's evolving. But I'm working on developing a permaculture training center to bring families out to get them connected with nature and reconnect with each other, and building out health from the ground up through nature and through plants.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lisa Polk. I am the founder of Pollyanna's Place, Inc., and I'm on the early ed side, birth to five. So, my nonprofit, we work with families and children so that we are educating both at the same time. And we create early learning, high quality early learning experiences in non traditional places. And so our goal is to increase that school readiness with the parents being involved and engaged from birth to five so that by the time they are at third grade, that their whole education trajectory could be changed. And so,
Awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Lisa, yeah. Hello, I'm Andy Tilstra. I am a co-owner and an adjunct professor at a university in Orlando and a co-owner of a business, Creativity Effects. Richard was up here 2 panels ago, and Dr. Tilstra was up here yesterday. And we really focus on design thinking and creative and innovation mindsets. So equipping students, teachers, faculty, um, from president down to wherever it stops at, I guess, in the bottom, I guess, students. And we really emphasize the understanding of collaboration, teamwork, and also empathy and design thinking, and how really everyone is creative with leadership potential within them. So very excited to talk to everyone here. We've all got just a great amount of perspectives. So Andy Tilstra here, and I'm really excited to be here.
Hello, I'm Alex Rand once again, and I am a middle school teacher. I teach middle school history and science, not together, of course. I mean, not that couldn't happen. Um, and I also teach 2 writing courses at Mount St. Mary's University, and at times I moderate rowdy panels, much to everyone's enjoyment. I'm certain. I'm quite certain. It is like middle school, yeah,
Very tough act to follow.
rein them in, rein them in. Yeah.
Well, so in light of all of us really striving to create what we would consider true access for all, because right now it's not for all. Let's be honest. We try, but our system is so antiquated, it's not for all right now. So, in light of trying to accomplish that, we really need a grassroots effort. And so we want to hear from our leaders and our panel here. What is it that makes a grassroots effort successful? Whoever wants to go first.
You want to go first?
Please.
All right. I'll start it, and then there we go, and then we can build on this. So I mentioned empathy. So we discussed, and I think we've all seen and experienced is that for an effective grassroots initiative to happen, there has to be um, it a level of, I don't want to say barrier, but there has to be a reason for this grassroots initiative. Maybe it's an intentional or unintentional barrier due to a system that's not helping out the people that are at the receiving end of it. And then also just an understanding that you know the people who are experiencing the challenge needs to be leading the initiative for this solution. We're probably going to mention the farther, the higher you up in the organization, the farther you away from the front line. And in a university or educational system, a lot of those people are making decisions for students and faculty, but they don't really understand what's going on. So a grassroots initiative is successful when those experiencing the challenge have a very strong understanding of the challenge, and then are able to rally and implement a level of change. That's my perspective. Does anyone else want to follow on that? Yeah.
Share something. And also, when you are thinking about a grassroots initiative, we don't ever like to think about the D word of data, but that really matters because if I want to get a company like Samsung to come out and sponsor my effort, I'm going to need to be able to tell my story. And you can tell your story using numbers as well as the narrative. So, um, what we use is accounts based. My brain just went, "Blah." And so we do the accounts based results so that we are able to tell the story as well as use the numbers. So it's not always about the numbers because we do have a story, because most grassroots, it is about the feeling and it's about the heart and it's about us trying to fight this fight and being able to get that across effectively. And so it is important to tell your story if you want to be able to have a successful grassroots initiative.
And I'll just follow up on that and saying that you need a really strong and clear vision. You have to have a vision for what you're trying to accomplish and the outcome of that vision. And you have to be able to persuade, engage, and enroll the leadership into your vision. And that's where the communication skills come in handy because you need support. You need buy-in, you need engagement. And, I have this formula that I teach in my workshops for a vision for persuasion. It's the persuasion formula. And it really is acknowledgement plus ambition equals effect. And what that means is, once you have your clear vision, how do you communicate it? How do you get people on board to support you and have buy-in so that we can grow the grass, if you will? And acknowledgement, when you're talking to leaders who are going to be instrumental in supporting your initiatives, how do you acknowledge your understanding of what they're dealing with in the leadership? Because people just really want to be heard. And it all starts by listening and acknowledging what you heard and acknowledging your understanding of their struggles, their challenges, along with their triumphs. Because just for me, just running in and telling people what you need and what you want without painting the picture, telling the stories, having a clear vision, I think it's harder to get buy-in on that. And then you want to, you've got the acknowledgement and then you've got their ambition. You've got to stoke their ambition for a better future. You've got to paint the picture of what the intrinsic and the extrinsic value would be to the leadership. Yeah, it sounds a little political, if you will, but people want to know all the time what's in it for me. What is the social recognition that they're going to get? What are maybe some leadership awards that they might get by buying into your grassroots mission? I couldn't resist. And And then you want to overlay that with a dose of affect or emotion. How would it make them feel to be part of such an amazing grassroots effort in implementing the changes that will address the challenges and what that future is going to look like? And that's where storytelling comes in, right? You want to still tell stories about, what you see from your perspective and why you're putting forth this initiative in the first place, and really get them emotionally involved in your efforts.
Well, I think I really love the way you lay that out from a leadership perspective. I am, as an educator, I've kind of learned you don't always ask for permission, you ask for forgiveness. And a lot of times when you're doing things that people aren't necessarily going to get the whole picture, and you may not be able to explain it because you're envisioning it, but you may not really know the whole framework of what it is that you're trying to do and how that's going to impact people. Um, you know, I was on our campus. I knew that kids needed to have more tangible activities for health, and we didn't have a garden. We used to have a garden, but we no longer had a garden at our school, and we had all this land that became available, and people wanted just to put trees on it and like make it a space that wasn't for education. And I believe that every place on campus is for education. Every space on campus is for education. You need to develop more outdoor learn spaces than you do indoor learn spaces. And so, slowly over time at my school, I've convinced people we need to change this and make this happen. And it hasn't always been that I knew what I was going to say to them right away, because they'll come up with an idea, and I'm not always as eloquent when I say that's not a good idea. But I've told the principal to go give your money someplace else because that's not what we wanted. We want an amphitheater. We want a place for kids to have an outdoor learn space. And if you're going to give us like a little patch of grass that doesn't really do us any service, that costs too much money, we don't want that. And so sometimes you need to be a little bit edgy and know your audience. And sometimes you also just need to go with it, because once the kids and the parents know you're gardening, the principal sometimes just has to go along with it now because everybody's really excited about what you're doing, and you may not have gotten all the right permissions to begin with or followed all the rules right away. So I know there's like lots of avenues to go, but I'm as an educator, sometimes we got to get a little bit messy and ruffle a few feathers when our cause is for the greater good.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, as a teacher, you just got to do it. Um, I will also add on to that by saying that it's incredibly important for grassroots initiatives to involve all stakeholders. So for me, that's going to be my students, it's going to be my parents, it's me and my partner teacher, my other colleagues, and of course the administrators to a certain extent. But I definitely associate with that idea of sometimes getting the ball rolling in certain sectors of the community, because then after a while everybody just has to get on board. I fully appreciate that.
Yeah, I just want to echo getting at the emotion and how people would feel being part of something greater than they actually are. We individually, each of us are making a difference, and each one of us have the power to make a difference, but no one of us can change an entire system as large as the educational system. Just like no one person is ever going to be able to completely overhaul our medical system, right? Our health system. So it is one of the largest systems, and that is why grassroots is really, really critical. And so, one of the things we were also talking about is how do you, when you're getting people on board, and I want to dive in a little bit more because this is part of the challenge, right? And why things fizzle when you're trying to get movement, but you can't get movement. Has anyone ever been there where you have a great idea and you just can't get the momentum to get it going? I see some hands. Yeah, I know I've been there. Um, so I want us to kind of think about that. I'm springing this on the panel. We talked about it a little bit. But how do you communicate something so vast, something so multi-layered, multi-dimensional, and get someone on board with this grassroots movement? How do you communicate that? How do you motivate people to get on board?
I'll take a stab. All right.
You're
Yeah,
like,
I'll break the water, and that way we all can follow. So I've been thinking a lot about grassroots initiatives, and I think like everything is a system, right? Everything's a structure. Education, way more so. And over time, systems have a there's a force of entropy that makes those systems become more rigid. They become more crystallized. They start disenfranchising more and more people, either accidental or on purpose, regardless of where the power lies. So thinking about education, it started as a phenomenal idea that was meant to embolden and like rise mankind. It's gotten to a point now where arguably it's not doing that for everybody. It's doing that for some, not doing that for all. So I think for a grassroots initiative to start, there has to be someone or a group of people who are at the receiving end of that system that is no longer aiding, but it's actually suppressing. And they have to ask the question of like, well, does it have to be this way? Why not? Why can't we change this? And then of course there's a host of other questions that follow, such as like, how do we do it? But I think that is the initial start. Is there has to be somebody who asks the mother of all questions of like, what's really going on here? Why am I not able to be emboldened by this? Why to get what I need to be the person that really is like my purpose? Why does that go counter to what's happening, either intentionally or unintentionally? And I think you need that one person who experiences that emotional catalyst moment where they understand that things need to change on that level, and then that just is the domino that could affect everything else. What do you guys think?
So you brought this idea up this morning, and I think it ties in very well, this idea of resistance and feeling that resistance and having that moment of what I would say is almost frustration of the way things are cannot go on. They cannot continue to go forward. There must be change. And a lot of times I think that although we are parts of a system, it is up to the individuals once they hit that frustration point or that level of discomfort to decide, I'm going to force a change here. I'm going to make a change here. And then you start to see that domino effect of people around, people who align, people who hear your voice also step on board and say, you know what? We've been thinking the same thing too. We may have been saying the same thing in different corners with different colleagues over time, but now that you're here on the stage, we feel that it's an opportunity for all of us to step up and have a more unified voice. And I think that it is that type of discomfort and that type of resistance that you hit that really pulls out the transformation in the evolution.
Yeah, I think when you're working, especially as an educator, you're very independent in what you're teaching in your classroom. You may get to collaborate with other teachers at your same grade level or your same subject level. But I think the more opportunities, there's so many opportunities that come at like lunch or nutrition or in a after school program where you just get to, or even at your professional development, where you get to share out like what are the best things that are happening in your classroom or with your students. How do you make a difference with that person? I know as teachers, the cross collaboration that we rarely have time to do has shifted a number of initiatives at our school that have made a real difference for kids, whether it's bringing in new programs like the speech and debate team or the after school gardening team. We had a program called Fresh for a while that the students wanted, and we just needed to find the right people that could stay after school and run that program. And I think sometimes ideas, you have all these great ideas, but teachers that have been there for a long time may not have the time or the capacity to still stay and do that. But you have some newer teachers on your school that may not, they may be overwhelmed with something else, but they want to stay and they want to have those engaging experiences. So I think it's finding ways to work within your network to um, access the key. The individuals in those big ideas, and find, especially as administrators, find the way to build this web of awesomeness to put together some of these bigger initiatives that wouldn't happen because people didn't get the opportunity to come together and talk about it.
So, initiatives require leadership, right? And leaders need to have some level of influence, if you will, on getting these initiatives off the ground. So, how can you be better influencers with the people who are crucial to supporting your initiatives? Well, one of the things, I think there's three components. I do everything in threes, obviously. You want to you want to teach people how to think about certain challenges and certain opportunities that they have. Not what to think specifically, but how to engage the masses in how to think about a certain problem or challenge or opportunity, to get them thinking in the way that you kind of want them to think about this particular thing. And then you want to challenge them, mobilize them, if you will, because I think people's ambitions is raised when they're faced with a challenge to stretch themselves a little bit, to accomplish something more than they've ever accomplished before. So how could you raise their ambition in that area to challenge them to stretch, whether it's, I always think of challenges people give themselves, like maybe a 5K race or a half marathon or something that makes them feel accomplished. But I think the most crucial thing is to role model what leadership looks like, and that comes with clear communication. How can you role model the way that this looks? How can you get buy-in and listen to people, because they will have opposition, they will challenge what you're proposing? How can you role model leadership in this opportunity that inspires action for change? And I have a quote that I want to read about the importance of asking questions. So I had to write it down because it's a quote, and it's from The Art of Powerful Questions. Because we've been taught so long in our education system to have the right answers, right? To memorize facts and to be ready with answers. And I want to really read this quote about how powerful questions can be when you want to raise your level of influence. The usefulness of the knowledge we acquire and the effectiveness of the actions we take deepen the quality of the questions we ask. Questions open the door to dialogue and discovery. They are an invitation to creativity and breakthrough thinking. Questions can lead to movement and action on key issues. By generating creative insights, they can ignite change. So if questions are so powerful and can ignite change and forward movement, I think we need to spend more time focusing on what are the right questions to ask to get buy-in, because our brains are so wired to just give facts and figures and data. Not that they're not important, but when you ask powerful forward-moving questions, you stimulate thinking, you stimulate creative movement, you stimulate collaboration and forward insights, so that it becomes more of a collaborative effort and people feel more involved and people support what they create.
Anyone else? Yeah. Mic
Drop
drop.
the mic. I'm a very visual learner. And so thinking about everything that everyone has said and just piggybacking on the leadership piece, I'm 6 years into a very grassroots movement. And so, Learning Spaces, which is the project that I operate in partnership with United Way of Greater Atlanta, is we started 6 years ago in one county, and now we're in 6 counties. And now we have the support of the city of Atlanta, and we have the Atlanta Housing Authority support, and they are adding in sites and building out their locations to add in more sites. And it has taken patience, and it has taken that leadership and bringing in our voice and talking to whoever will listen, and having our sponsor be behind us so that they're saying the same thing. We're all singing the same song. And so now we have gotten to, we're almost at 20 sites. 9 of those sites are mine with my organization, and then we have 4 more coming on with organizations building out space to that question of why aren't our children reading by 3rd grade? How can we support them? And stating that problem, and then coming in from the early childhood space and saying, let's help. But then also you have other questions of, well, I don't really want my children in formal childcare, and I want to stay home with them. And so we created a space for parents so that they can be at home with their children at the same time and come out once a week for 2 hours and get a high quality experience. And so it speaks to everything that all of our panelists have been talking about. And it's having that voice, but also being patient, because we're 6 years in now. And so now we're building up the momentum because we've kept talking. We've kept providing that leadership with whoever will listen. And it is at that time of change where states are creating legislation that elementary schools have to be aligned with the science of reading by a certain time frame. So in Georgia, it's by 2025. All elementary schools have to be aligned with the science of reading, K through 2nd grade. So our program aligns with the science of reading already from birth to 5. So it's helping to get all of that together and streamlining it and building that pathway so that your grassroots movement fits into the systems so that you can gain higher support and you can have your song, it's sung louder by more people. And before you know it, you have a chorus and everybody's singing the same song.
Anyone else? I'm just going to add one other thing to think about is our networks. How many of you know someone who believes the same thing about our educational system as you do? Okay. How many of you know more than one? Right? I could list, if I went through my Facebook page and my LinkedIn page, I would have hundreds, right? And so it's all about messaging and leveraging the networks that you have. So let's say I have 150 people who I know I've had conversations with and I know they're on board with what I'm trying to do, I arm them with the language. I arm them with the concepts that we need to get across and call them to action to be able to continue to spread the word and to continue to have those conversations. So if I have 150 and each of you have 100 or 150, there's about 45 people in here, we can have quite a movement just in one day, wouldn't we? Right? So it's really about deciding, are we going to do something about it? Or are we going to keep letting it slide? Are we going to do something widespread? Are we going to keep letting it slide? And there's another piece of this, right? There's that shared leadership. One person can't do it. We've got to share the burden. This is hard work. And we've got to be able to plant seeds because while we all know who the early adopters are, we also know who those people who are like, I'm a little skeptical, right? We also have to think about how do we plant seeds in those people who are a little bit skeptical so that eventually they come on board and they start seeing things in a different way, right? So I also want to think about that we are deeply connected to a lot of people, each one of us. And we have time for one more question. We have about 15 minutes, so that gives you about 3 minutes each. Um, so, last question. Here we go. This was a tough one this morning. We had to really think about it. So, hopefully, they've been thinking and they're really prepared. So, what is the best piece of advice you would give someone who was starting a grassroots movement? What's the one thing you would tell them? I was- I put them on the spot again. They did know this question. They helped me come up with it. I promise. Alex is ready. Look at that.
I'm gonna try here. All right, for the bleachers. Um, a couple things. One, have patience, of course. In all things, have patience. Two, just go with no expectations. Go with your passion. Go run far, run deep, and be excited about it. But drop expectations at the door. Expectations at the door, because you're gonna have to. You mentioned planting seeds. This is when I teach middle school. That's what I just consider I'm planting seeds. What is really sticking and what is not going to stick, I don't know. 15, 20 years from now, when they remember some things that I taught them, I don't think they'll necessarily even attribute it to me, but they'll just have the knowledge. Great. So when we're talking about starting something like this, I think it's really about, again, creating multiple avenues for your organization or for your idea, for your dream to exist, but having limited expectations on all of them just to let them exist and be whatever they become. That way you're not being discouraged when when your initial idea doesn't quite go the way that you wanted it to, or you see that it's not coming to fruition. Rather than just becoming a stagnant idea, you can begin to pivot.
And already he's breaking the rules. Don't be afraid to break the rules.
There you go.
I'll tag into that because I think I kind of see things very similar to you as a high school educator, where all kinds of things around you are broken. Everybody is, there's a lot of naysayers or people are like, why would you, that's just not easy to do. And my biggest thing is that I have a lot of really big ideas, and when I walk around my campus now and I see the amphitheater and I see the food forest with 50 trees in it, and I see the garden, and I see the birds coming in and the hummingbird habitat. And I walk around and I see, wow, this is really amazing. We were able to accomplish this in less than 10 years at my school, but it was so much work. And if I would have thought about how hard it was going to be to make this happen in the beginning, I probably never would have started it or pushed for it because it was exhausting. But I don't ever really think about that as I'm like coming up with stuff with my students. We don't, the kids have an idea, I'm like, okay, let's go with it. Let's push for that. And so as you're working towards change, whatever that change is going to be, that's going to empower your students to make a better learning environment, that's going to make a difference in their long-term growth that they may or may not know about now. Don't let like the effort and the work get in the way of your vision, because it's going to hold you back. And don't be afraid of what you don't know, because you can always learn. We're here to learn and adapt and change. It's always changing around us, and it's not pretty and it's not perfect, and things are going to break and you're going to have to fix it. And that's just part of it. And that's the beauty of it. That's the kids love it when they see you fail and then come back and succeed, or when you fail with them and then you get to go back and fix it and make a difference and make it better the next time. It shows how human you are as an educator and within an institution, that it doesn't always work right the first time.
I want to piggyback off of what you said about it's exhausting. So you've got to be consistent. I think consistency is the key. A few of you mentioned being patient. It's not going to happen overnight. And with that being said, you've got to protect your energy. And that's the piece of advice that I would give you as a high performance coach is a power plant doesn't have energy, it generates energy. So you need to be mindful of your mental, your emotional, and your physical energy, because you are running a marathon, not a sprint. So how can you prepare yourself to be in it, to be in it for the long haul. What do you have to do? What are the things that you need to do to reset, to regenerate, to refocus, to recharge, to whatever it is that you need to do to generate the energy you need to bring to your effort, to your initiatives, to the fight, because I hear you as educators. I have such high respect for educators for what they've done for my children, especially, and for me too, is that it takes a tremendous amount of grace and patience and energy and stamina to be with other people's kids, whether they're young, little, and early childhood education, or have that one foot in adulthood and the other on a banana peel, if you will. It takes a great amount of energy. So you've got to take care of yourself if you want to see your visions come to life.
I think so. Everyone in here, I assume, is like a teacher or high. They're not. Some people in here are students, maybe like PhD, doctoral candidates or not. But most of us are teachers. So when it comes to grassroots, we're probably going to be more so on the leadership side rather than the actual grassroots side. For the most part, could be different. So I think with that, I want to speak to leaders of grassroots for my last little thing, and um, I want to also resonate with what Eva said. Although it's going to, it's not three things, it's four things, but it all encapsulates into one thing. All right, so I'm not breaking the rules totally, but
Progress, kids.
yeah, as leaders, right? Because grassroots initiatives are really just frontline initiatives, and that's going to happen regardless whether you support it or not. So you might as well support it, because then you'll at least be on the same side. So as leaders to support it, that's my thing, is you have to, and you can do that in four very simple ways, and it was touched on a little earlier today, is you can be the voice. You can communicate why it's happening. You can be the voice. You can say, hey, this is what needs to take place, and this is how we all can support this. You can educate. You can say, why is this now important? You can hold people, you can provide resources, so either time, money, places, or people. And then you can also hold people accountable. So it's like, if this is happening, if this is going on, how are we going to hold each other accountable so that it's in this marathon, when we reduce expectations and all this, how do we, 3 years from now, how do we keep this train rolling after all the fuel's gone, when all the power plants are now dried up, and we're having to generate our own energy? How do we do that? So as leaders, get on the same side as those frontline initiatives, get on the same side as those grassroots initiatives, because it's going to take place. It's going to happen. Students are changing the world. Young people are changing the world. And we just either have to get out of the way, or we have to help them reach the next point. And in those four ways, you can be the voice, you can educate, provide resources, and hold them accountable.
I'm going to drop the mic for my team. They said everything that I would want to say. I just ditto and copy everything that they said.
So my final thought on that also is, as someone who has kind of come full circle within myself, I now know myself better than I've ever known myself. Um, I have been fighting imposter syndrome most of my life. Can anyone here relate? Imposter syndrome means I'm not good enough. How could I go for that when there's so many other people that should be doing that work? And oh my gosh, like that person's doing this and I can't even compare to that. That's imposter syndrome, right? But what we have to realize is that we are all here for a purpose. We might be just this little peon on this earth, but together we make a whole big raging sea, right? We are a sea of really powerful people. And so I encourage everyone to own your power, to own your intellect, to own your ability to take change by the reins and drive it. Drive it the way you want it, drive it. Drive it where it needs to go to really support the people and embrace that servant leadership within yourself. So that is all I have. Any other following questions or statements? Well, I thank you all. And if you want to learn more about the grassroots movement, we do have a question out there. Oh, I was just like, you are done. Well, thank you all for being a great audience. If you have more questions about the grassroots movement we're working on, you can see us over at the Ed Matador and Educational Luminaries table. She's like, like, get out.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, panelists, for that excellent discussion.